Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Oxnard Live. I'm your host, Daniel Chavez Jr. Tonight, we'll be speaking with the co-compliance manager, Roger Brooks, and you're probably wondering, what is co-compliance? Well, if you recall, a few years ago, it used to be called code enforcement, and it used to be under the police department. Now it's under another department. And today we're going to find out what exactly is co-compliance. What role does it play in the city? And how does it keep the residents, the city, and our businesses safe? So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Roger Brooks, co-compliance manager of the city of Oxnard.
Thank you, Daniel.
Welcome, Roger. Thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. The number one question is, what is co-compliance? But before we jump into that, I want to learn a little bit more about you. How long have you been with the city? How long have you been with co-compliance? And then we'll jump into finding out just exactly what co-compliance is.
Okay. I've been with the city for 27 years. I came over as an animal control officer for 2 years with the police department. Then I went in as a community service officer for 4 years, taking police reports as a civilian. And in 2000, when the city decided to do the Jolly Jumper ordinance and created that, I was hired into code enforcement at the time as a park ranger to patrol the parks on the weekends. And so I've been with code enforcement since 2000, and I, promoted up, became a senior officer, and then I've been the manager for the last 3 years.
Awesome. So again, the number one question that always comes up is, what is co-compliance? Everybody has their own take as to what exactly co-compliance is, but hopefully today you'll be able to share just exactly what co-compliance is, what is its role, and why does our city need it?
Okay. Code compliance, code enforcement, they're actually synonymous. The city chose years back a lot of the trend was to go with a little bit softer name, because enforcement just seems like it's heavy-handed. Compliance is our real goal. Is always our goal. Is we want to work with the public to always have them comply without us doing any actions towards them in a enforcement type way. The official definition is code enforcement is the prevention, detection, investigation, and enforcement of violations of statutes or ordinances regulating public health, safety, and welfare, public works, business activities, and consumer protection, building standards, land use, or municipal affairs. So basically, it's everything. Our city code book is about this thick. If it's not really directed at police or fire, it kind of falls on our lap.
So why is it so important? Why does our city actually need this department? Isn't that why we have police and fire and the city manager's office? Why is co-compliance so important to have?
Well, what we do is we make sure that your homes are safe, your properties are safe, everything, that it's a safe place to live without hazards. We have building inspectors. Building inspectors building inspectors inspect new construction. We ensure all the buildings are safe, interior, exterior. Because like I say, the building inspectors would only be involved with new permits. We handle everything else. So we're basically the frontline people. We take care of like substandard housing, improper living, improper construction or unpermitted construction, unpermitted structures in your yard, property maintenance, overgrown grass, weeds, trash, that type of thing. Inoperable vehicles. We do inoperable vehicles on private property. Actually, in the police department will handle them on public property. So if it's a vehicle on a street that's abandoned, that actually would go to PD, not us. In an alley, if it's in the 25-foot driving part of the alley, that would be PD. If it's on the side of the alley, that would be code. We do graffiti enforcement. We work with the GAP program quite a bit. GAP will paint what they can. If it's private property where they can't, we get involved and contact the property owners to have that cleaned up. Encroachments, those have really grown this year. And that's anything from a basketball hoop to people leaving cones and trash cans on the street, saving parking. Weed abatement. We do weed abatement on all the vacant lots of the city. We do business licensing checks, making sure the businesses are staying up to code and obtaining all the required permits, which, and it's a lot of that has to do with tenant improvements. When the business comes in, we make sure they get the right permits and for the right construction when they change a business. Sign permits. We take care of illegal advertising. Um, we also handle temporary use permits for events and making sure people follow those guidelines and just any other zoning code type violations for your neighborhoods.
Wow. Sounds like you guys definitely have your guys' handful. How many co-compliance officers do you have in the department?
So our unit is comprised of the manager, myself, two administrative people, one senior inspector, and seven general inspectors.
Wow, for a city of over 207,000 residents,
Yeah.
does not sound like a lot of people to be able to
Yeah.
go around the city.
No, and if you want to break that down any further, so we get funding from CDBG for the low income areas of the city. So two of the inspectors have to stay within those certain areas, which is right now it's Southwinds, Lemonwood, Cal Geisler, the whole Ileton area by the old Oxnard High School, Colonia, and Rose Park. So those two inspectors can only work in those areas. We have one other inspector that's he assigned to the Safe Home, Safe Families Repeat Offender Program. So that leaves four inspectors basically to handle the rest of the city. So we're
Wow.
tight.
Yeah, I could imagine. You brought up a couple of points, and these are points that are very important, very
Mm-hmm.
hot topic points. You see it all over social media, residents' frustrations. Um, so I want to talk about the parking situation because a lot of people, as we all know, 207,000 plus residents, everybody has a car. Some homes have two cars, three cars. Um, Blocking off parking spaces tend to be the big offender that people do. You mentioned cones, trash cans, or any other objects, I'm assuming, get
Mm-hmm.
put out there. Um, Now, what role does PD play and what role does code enforcement play or code compliance play?
So for actual parking violations, the police department would handle those parking violations on the street. When it comes to the encroachments, that would fall on us. That's the items being placed in the roadway causing a hazard. And they are considered hazards, whether they're a cone, whether they're a chair, whether it's a trash can. The city code does require that your trash cans come in within 24 hours of trash day. So after that has passed, trash cans are considered the same as the cones or the chair or a piece of metal. Or we've seen baby strollers, little baby cars, multiple things. I mean, we do understand that during COVID, when more people have been home, the parking issue has become greater. Um, we will always give you a warning first. Place a warning at your house to try to take the items out. We will confiscate that if they're in the public street. We don't have to notify you when we take them. We will just confiscate them for the safety. It is a problem, but we're hoping as things open back up, things do get a little better. But the parking is a problem in the city, and we try to do the best we can with it.
Well, let me ask you about that. You talk about encroachment and that the objects are out there on the city streets, trash cans, cones, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
But the average resident will say, well, it's not impeding anything. It's off to the side where a car will typically be at. So why is that a problem?
It's still a danger. A car could still hit it. And if you thought if someone was crossing the street and the car was to hit it, it could also make the object fly through the air. Um, the public street is public. It is, even though it's in front of your residence, it's not deeded to you and it's not your parking spot. It's open to anybody. And that's part of why you cannot block the parking in front of your own house.
Okay. Now, what is the craziest thing that has been placed out on the public street to block off parking that either yourself or any of your officers have came across?
Well, I think one of the funniest one was those remote small cars for kids, the ones little kids drive. They've put them in parking spots. Most of the time, it's cones or trash cans.
Wow. And I remember a few years ago in Colonia, Colonia, South
Mm-hmm.
Oxnard, those are, hot spots for the parking issue. There was one person that was actually leaving cars in parking spaces that they were actually working on. So like, I guess there was like some type of mechanic shop nearby or something, or he was just working out of his home and he was occupying these spots. Does code enforcement or code compliance step in and address that, or is that all PD in particular of the vehicle just occupying spots because they're being worked on?
Well, you're not allowed to work on your vehicle on a public street unless it's an emergency repair only. So that we would get involved with if the repairs were actively being done on the car on the public street. Yes, we would get involved with that. If it's just a parking issue, it would be referred to PD. So, but yeah, no auto repairs should occur on a public street. Period. And in residential areas, auto repairs can only occur at the house where the car is registered. So
Okay,
you can't run an auto repair business out of your house either.
got it. Now, we've been kind of seeing this, and I'm not trying to burn anybody, but um, are you allowed to do a makeshift driveway of your home? Have like a metal grate that you can drive up to drive onto your property or wood piles, whatever. Is that allowed in the city?
No. So in order to drive across the city sidewalk, you must have a legal curb cut, and that is the lower ramp. They're actually changing because of American Disabilities Act. They're not that whole slower slope; they're a little bit steeper slope, but you must have a city approved and permitted curb cut to cross the sidewalk to enter your property. So those ramps, we consider those ramps. They're basically the same as the cones you're putting out in the street. It's an encroachment, and they need to be removed. If you're using those to cross the sidewalk to your property, then you're considered parking in your front lawn, which is also an ordinance that you're not allowed to do.
Even if you have like a cement pad out on the property that you put out there just for that specific reason?
Only if that cement pad is accessible from a legal curb cut crossing the sidewalk.
Got
If
it.
it's a cement pad that you have to put the ramp and drive over the sidewalk, then that piece of concrete is not a driveway. It's just a piece of concrete, and it's considered front yard parking violation.
Good to know. Um, I want to talk about vacant properties. In
Mhm.
Oxnard, we see a lot of vacant properties. Maybe not as much as other cities, but we do see them occasionally. And we tend to see the issue with weeds, overgrown weeds. And some can even argue that we see them even on city properties and medians, the overgrown weeds. What role does co-compliance play with those property owners to address the overgrown weeds, the graffiti on their property, or just the overall just trash property? It's a vacant property. Nobody's occupying the space. It's just a wasteland pretty much. What role does co-compliance play?
So code compliance is the enforcer of weed abatement for the city of Oxnard. In most other jurisdictions, it would be the fire department, but in Oxnard, it is us. We have approximately 400 vacant lots in the city, and they are all due to have their weeds cut and cleared by June 1st of every year. So it is coming up. We're already in May. Um, so if they're not done by June 1st, we will send out an abatement order to them. If they don't take care of it, then we will send in an abatement contractor to cut the weeds down and then bill the property owner. Um, Also, with graffiti or trash, it also goes with the same notice. Um, so what we do is we beg the property owners, please take care of it by June 1st. There is a charge that goes out with the notice. There is a charge that goes out with the abatement. It's not cheap. So we would knock on wood. The last 4 years, we have not had to conduct an abatement on a vacant property. The property owners have all taken care of it. So that was a goal we tried to reach. At one point, when I first started in code, we were conducting at least 100 a year. So we've come a long way in getting the property owners to be responsible and compliant. Um, Also, you mentioned graffiti. What was you mentioned one other? Oh, you talked about city property. So we do work in conjunction with the Parks Department. Every year we let them know what our guidelines are and what we expect of the property owners. So the Parks Department will work in conjunction with us, and they will get all their weeds cleaned by June 1st also. So, and I've already checked with them this year. They have all their equipment, and they will be taking care of that.
Awesome. Now, why June 1st?
Well, that used to be the start of fire season in California. Now California's fire season's all year long. It's basically after the rainy season. It's enough time that the green, whatever grows green, dries out, and by June 1st, it's usually dried out and it's really becoming a fire hazard. And that's our code is removing a fire hazard. Or it's weeds, brush, or anything that creates a fire menace is the way it's worded. Also, as everybody knows, a month later is fireworks, July 4th and fireworks. We want to get the lots clean so we don't have fires. We don't have problems with the overgrown weeds causing fires, burning homes, or anything like that. So the fireworks, it all ties in with the 4th of July. Our goal is by July 1st, we will have every lot done no matter what. So
they have a whole year to be able to accomplish this, or does it occur twice a year, or how often did it occur?
Our actual weed abatement process is once a year. It's by June 1st. There have been years where we've had rain several years back. I want to say 4 or 5 years back. We actually had a lot of rain in April and May, which actually we had to send out secondary letters in July and August because the weeds grew up and they dried out again. Normally doesn't happen, but June 1st is the standard every year. And then if we have a problem, we'll address them individually.
Okay, so if a vacant property gets overgrown once again, or city property, you'll work with the appropriate party in order to address it.
It's whenever per the code, it's whenever it's dried out and becomes a fire menace.
Awesome. Good to know. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just say, since we brought up fireworks, I would like to just remind everybody, fireworks are illegal in the city of Oxnard and they are being enforced. Fines are either $250 for safe and sane, which is only the type they sell in Fillmore, or $1,000 for any other type of fireworks. And that is both for you being in possession or you allowing it on your property. So if we show up and there's fireworks on your property with people that are visiting you, you will still be cited for that. Wow. So please, please don't use fireworks in Oxnard. It's what we ask.
Now, the safe and sane, those are kind of like those little spring sparkler ones that.
Yes.
Okay. That's sad.
So they also, and we get the same complaint every year. Some of the big box stores, they sell these big packages. They call them fireworks, but they're actually not considered true fireworks. They're poppers. They're little things that don't fit the criteria of fireworks, but they call them fireworks on the box. So we do proactively go to the big box stores starting in June, and we will check out what they have on display and stuff and make sure that they're not selling fireworks.
Good to know. I want to talk about COVID, because COVID kind of affected a lot of communities, a lot of departments, a lot of residents, a lot of businesses. What was code compliance's role from March of 2020 and even to now dealing with COVID?
So our role is continuing. We are the ambassadors for the Ventura County Public Health Office. So basically for COVID enforcement, it falls on our lap. So they've got the county set up a hotline for any complaints. The complaints go into the county will funnel them to the jurisdiction that they're in. Obviously for us, it would come to us. So during the COVID thing, we are also the inspectors for any business that register. All businesses are required to register with the county on the county website. Once they register, it's our department's tasks to go to the business to ensure they're following the COVID guidelines. So since March of last year, our code compliance staff has visited 2,000 businesses for compliance inspections, and additional 2,000 businesses for complaints that we received for people not following the guidelines for various reasons, whether it's social distancing, whether it's not wearing masks, whether it's not having protocols in place, that type of thing.
Now, you guys aren't actually, or maybe I didn't hear that. You're not actually enforcing it. You're just relaying the guidelines that were given to you guys by the county public health department, correct?
Correct. The term they've used is we are ambassadors for county health department. So we're not actually doing the enforcement, but we are doing the checks and we are relaying the information back.
And then the county would end up sending their people to conduct the enforcement if need be, or
they
compliance.
They would forward our information to either the district attorney's office or the county counsel's office for prosecution or follow up. We do have a city ordinances also about the public health, which is the emergency director's orders, which is our city manager's orders. He does have some orders in place strictly for during the emergency, and we can enforce that with civil citations. There have been a few of those issued. Those were more for gatherings when no gatherings were supposed to be happening, and there were certain residences were either having parties every weekend or gathering at parks or something. So there have been a few of those citations issued.
So it's just primarily for gatherings. It's not in particular business model or anything like that. It's just parties and homes, parks, or anywhere else, correct?
For the civil citations we've issued for the city, correct. That's the enforcement we've taken. All the rest of the enforcement for businesses has been referred to the county to work with.
Okay. I want to talk about, and you brought it up in regards to permittings, that is something that you guys review, are responsible for checking and making sure businesses are in compliance with that, or anybody. Now, to my knowledge, there's two parts. Depending on the type of business, you have to, one, receive a business license from the city. And then depending on the type of business, you have to receive a health permit from the county. And to my knowledge, you can't have one without the other. Can you speak a little bit about that and how that works?
Sure. For businesses, all businesses are required to have they're called a business tax certificate. Technically, it's a business license. So they need to come in and get that. Along with that is a zone clearance for all businesses. And that allows planning to look at the business, look at the zoning. Is that business allowed at that location, that type of thing. If there's any tenant improvements, it goes to the building department to see if there are any permits needed for the alterations or anything like that to the building. All food type businesses require a county health permit per our city code and per the state health codes. We are not allowed to issue a business license to any food type business without a health permit. So we send them to the county to obtain their health permit, and they would need to show that to us.
Okay. Now, without that county health permit, they can't receive any permits or tax certificates from the city, correct? They would
for food. Correct.
They would technically be operating illegally.
They're operating without a business license. Yes.
Okay. What other programs are under code compliance as far as, not policing, that's the wrong word, but ensuring the compliance of all residents and the public in general?
Well, okay. So like we have our general code enforcement. I kind of went through that. In our CDBG funded areas, that is mainly proactive. They're about 80 to 85% proactive, doing residential inspections, making sure that the housing is not substandard, and we're trying to improve and bring up the values of the neighborhoods. Um, we have our Safe Homes, Safe Families repeat offender program. That was enacted a couple of years ago, and that's the one where we deal with, these are the cases that are drawn out, or problem owners that we've had three or more in the last 3 years. We've had three or more serious substandard housing problems on their properties, or they've had a case that's a serious substandard housing case they have not resolved in the last 3 years. So that has proven so far in the initial part to be very successful. We've gotten feedback from the police department that in the areas or residences they've known that have been brought in the program, they've improved significantly. Once you're in that program, it is double fines. We do charge for inspection fees, and what it is, you'd have to pass there's yearly inspections. You have to pass 2 inspections with no problems to come out of the program. And for the most part, 99% of the owners, once they see all the information about it, they actually buy into it because it does improve the value of their properties too.
So what happens after they complete the 2 inspections? They pass, they're off the list. They jump back on the list if they fall back in. Is there any penalties for falling back on that list?
No, it would be the same criteria. They would have to have 3 or more serious violations within the last 3 years. So,
Oh.
and them being in the program would not count towards that. So if they had if they're in the program and then 1 year they had 1 more, we wouldn't count the other 2 that were already counted. They would have to actually seriously violate again. The program's kind of built that it's going to wipe it's if we're successful, and it's every year it's going to be less and less properties going into the program, so we won't need it. Is the goal. It also had a relocation factor that it could fund a relocation if we found a very, very serious substandard case. We have not found one yet. We also, we provide all the information to the tenants also about their rights. It's a lot of information is what we're providing about tenants' rights, owners' rights. It's just like I say, and if you go to our website, there's a whole section on it. You can read all about tenants and owners' rights. Owners have just as many rights as the tenants do, for the most part. So like I say, there's 2 pamphlets on both. Past that, what's coming up for us that one thing we're responsible for, it's kind of in limbo right now, is the harbor, the waterways. We've always been in charge of the codes on the water and enforcing the codes. We used to have harbor patrol that would patrol the harbor. They're no longer patrolling the harbor, so we're still responsible for the enforcement. We just don't have that patrol mechanism. And then coming up for us within the next, it's working up now, is short-term rentals and that enforcement, and then the cannabis and enforcement of the cannabis.
Good to know. I want to jump back to the safe homes, safe families. Now, first question is, does it have to deal with apartment complexes, or can it be a single family home, or not multi, but single family home or apartment complexes, or is it any property that has tenants renting it?
Any residential unit. So this morphed. This when we first started looking at this, the push was for a rental property inspection program. Oxnard has 50,000 rentals.
Wow.
No, excuse me, take that back. 50,000 residences. 25 or 50% of those are rentals. One of the problems with the rental property inspection program was not welcomed by a lot of groups. And the other problem with that is normally that only involves 3 or more units per property. Whereas this program actually does hit with any type of housing. And so this actually captures the illegal garage conversions that were happening. Unfortunately, there were a few homeowners that would continually convert their garages, and if they were found to be in violation, they removed it, they would put it right back as soon as we walked away. So that's the way this is designed. It does fit any property, any residential unit. So that captures. What's also changed though is from this being enacted is the ADU laws, where they weren't enforced at that time, whereas now many of the garage conversions, if they're found now, can go. There is a process for them to legalize the conversions of the garages now. So that's another thing. This program's gonna end up slowly going away.
Now, the ADUs, if the conversions of the garage, would they have to knock all the stuff down and then rebuild once they fall under that legal standing, or would they be able to keep it all up?
It depends on the construction. If it was built properly, they could possibly leave everything as is. The first step is they need to apply for an ADU permit and go through that process with planning. And when I believe that they submit at the same time, they have to submit plans for the way that unit is converted. So if they draw it up the way it is and that gets approved, they'll have to get an inspection, but there might only be minor changes they might have to make. If it's not built very well, they may well have to tear down everything and start from scratch.
Wow. And keeping in line with the safe home, safe families, I know it has been a huge topic, particularly for residents in South Oxnard that live in those apartment complexes that always attend city council meetings and recently virtually attending council meetings, talking about substandard living conditions, that there is black mold and there's other issues in their living conditions. What role does the code compliance plays in order to, I don't know if protect the identity of the reporter is the best term, but in order to prevent any repercussions or any drawbacks to reporting the conditions?
So the reporting party information is kept confidential. We do not disclose that. Only in cases under a court order would we have to disclose it. And if someone went to a judge and got a demand with a subpoena, at that point it could be divulged, but we do not divulge that information. The recent ones that have been brought up at council, unfortunately, those have not come to our office, and I'm not aware of what we are not aware of what buildings they are referring to. We have discussed it when we've heard of this brought up at council. We've asked, but we are not aware of where these buildings are that they are complaining about. If with any complaint, we will inspect it. If we need to, we can get an inspection warrant from the courts if they won't let us inside. So, like I say, please report it to us. We will check it out. We will go inside, and we will, if there's violations, we will make them get repaired.
Now, when you're dealing with that particular situation, say that it's an apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
I'm living there. I report that there's black mold in my bathroom, in my kitchen, or wherever. And I've already brought it to the attention of the property owner or a manager, and they've done nothing about it. So now my step is taking it to the city and reporting it. At any point, am I the only apartment you're going to inspect, or would you randomly select other apartments to see if that issue is wide range or if it's only to one area?
Okay.
That might be a loaded question, and I apologize for that.
I was trying not to use that word. Okay. So if it's in safe homes, safe families, we've had some very large apartment complexes that are in safe homes, safe families. We do a random selection in those where we pick, and the owner's not allowed to pick the random. We pick the randoms that we will go check. If it's just a basic complaint, our first complaint coming in, when it comes to mold, we are not mold experts. We know what it looks like, but we're not the experts. We will require the owner to call in a remediation company to come and inspect to find out how bad it is. If it is through the wall of a common wall, we will require the inspection of the next door unit. But to just The only way we could do the random is the property owner or manager would have to agree to let us. And it would be difficult to get the warrant to just do a random in a complex. Usually it has to be some attachment. Mold is caused by water leaks. There's water. So what we do is, yes, we want the mold remediated, but we need to find what is causing it. Where's the water leak coming from? And let's get that fixed.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I was trying to because there are those people, and as you mentioned, that there's no records, there's no documentations as to exactly where these properties are at. The complaints are coming in, the concerns are coming in, but there's no like, this is the property, this is where it's occurring at. And, one of the biggest concerns that people always throw out is, well, I don't want to get kicked out. I don't want my rent to go up as a result of me reporting it. And if I'm the only one reporting it, that makes me look bad. And I'm afraid of that retaliation. So that's why I asked that question, if there would be a random.
So I recommend they go to our website and they pull up the documents that are in English and Spanish about tenants' rights and owners' rights, because it does spell out what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. Um, they would they have to have just cause for the eviction. Just because you reported a problem that they're not fixing, there needs to be more. I mean, an eviction is a court order to leave a property, which they have to go in front of a judge and prove. So it's not just saying I'm evicting you and you're out. It has to be a court order. So read up on your rights. You do have rights, and there are attorneys that can help you out too. So you don't get evicted just from reporting one thing.
Good to know. Um, if okay, so somebody trying to find out more information about code compliance, where do they go?
Um, Go to the city website, oxnard.org/code. And it's a shortcut, but it'll take you to our website. We have information on safe homes, safe families. We have information on tenants' rights, owners' rights, and various handouts. And also on the website, we have a map of the city and the different areas. And with that areas down below is a list of all of our inspectors that are assigned to each area. So you can actually, if you know what area you're living in, it does have a direct contact for you to get a hold of that inspector.
Awesome. Um, Sorry, I got to back up one more time to that safe home, safe families. If somebody, what would be the appropriate steps? Would it be appropriate for the tenant to report it to the management first before going to the city, or does it
Well,
not really matter?
okay, this separate from safe home, safe families, you cannot report someone into it.
Okay.
Safe home, safe families is purely based off past history and past actions of a owner. So this is a great question. So what we recommend to any tenant is contact the property manager or owner first, explain your issue and the problem, document the date and time when you talk to them, document all your communication. If they don't take care of it, if they ignore you, if they don't take care of it, whatever, then contact us. Because one of the first things we're going to do is contact them. Here's a complaint. Have you received this before? The owner because there are times we receive a complaint and they come to us first. You need to give the property manager a chance to take care of it. Obviously, I mean, there is no set time, but I would say within a week or something, if there's been no action, please give us a call and we'll start working on it then. But understand too, is our goal is compliance. So we do work with people time wise to resolve issues.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. One thing that, and this is not a jab at police, the difference between law enforcement and code compliance is that you guys generate, but not reports. So everything gets logged in, and a report follows it, and whatever complaint, right? Or I think I might be wording that wrong.
Okay. Well, I can talk for us. I can generally talk about police. I can about us. If someone calls our office to report something, it gets logged into our case management system. So there's a record right away. And then there's a required follow up where we have to follow up with it. And at some point, have a disposition of it. So there will be a log. If we go out and we do the inspection, we take photographs, they'll be logged into the case. Um, there are cases we go out and we don't find a violation. There are some others, but everyone, if you call it in with a complaint, it does get logged into our system and tagged in there. With the police department, if you call in to have an officer respond, every one of those is also logged into the dispatch system. So in their computer aided dispatch system, everything that you call in and they send an officer to is in there. Whether they take a full report or not, that's different. That's if there's an incident or a crime, then they'll take a report. But not every response generates a report, but every response does generate a computer dispatch entry in their computer system.
And thank you for clarifying, because that's what I was trying to convey, but obviously my mind and my mouth weren't working at the same time. It's so when people call code compliance, it's not you guys go out there and then forget about it. There's follow-ups to it.
Correct.
So there's that ongoing insurance that it is being monitored, depending if there's something found or not.
Right.
So that's assurance to the public.
Yeah. And one other thing is we don't work 24/7, but if there's a code issue that's a dangerous code issue or something, you can call the police department. We are dispatched even during the day. Sometimes we do carry police radios, and we are dispatched. We are in contact with police dispatch. So that is one way to report certain, if there's something in progress or something like that. One of the things when we're talking about short-term rentals, when they're looking at past history, since they're now going to regulate them, one of the things they're looking at is the police dispatch system. How many calls for service have gone to that residence? And like I say, that's probably a more accurate of what's been going on, because those are going to be calls for loud parties disturbing or something like that. So when the fallacy is when I call the police department, it doesn't do any good. It does do good. If you don't report it, it never happened. So like I say, it'll at least, even if a police report isn't taken or someone's not cited, it's still logged. And down the road, as you can see with short-term rentals, now that are going to be regulated, they're looking at the past history of these properties to see if it has been a problem or not.
Roger, thank you again for joining us. Is there any final words, final information that you want to give out to the public?
One of the things I just kind of want to share, we've had a couple positive things. One of the major cases we worked on for several years was the Magic Auto dealership on Oxnard Boulevard. It was one of the first receiverships we've done in the city. We did one actually about 20 years ago, but we moved towards doing a receivership where we gained enough evidence that we went to court, and a judge basically took the control of the property away from the property owner and assigned it to a receiver. So at this time, the receiver has control of both properties. They are going through the motions to rehabilitate the properties, clean them up. There will be some rehabilitation. There might be some removals of some items and stuff. And when their properties are all cleaned up and all code violations are removed, then it'll be up to the property owner to either reimburse the receiver for all costs involved, including city cost, attorney's fees and all that, or they can sell the property, pay off all that, and then the owner would get the remaining. We won't know what will happen with that till the end, till the whole rehabilitation is done, but that is in progress right now with those dealerships. Also, a major thing that comes up all the time is Halico. And so we did the major abatement several years ago on the flat property. We did a smaller one a year later. Right now, all the people seem to be, they've congregated on the slag pile, which is across the canal. Working with housing, we are working on a plan to have the residents vacate that and do an abatement on that property. Unfortunately, COVID has kind of tied our hands about moving homeless people off encampments. So we are meeting monthly, discussing this and setting up a plan to get that property cleaned up. The only other thing is just our website and contact info. Please call us 805-385-7940. Press 5 to leave a message right away, or press 9 to contact one of our admin staff. Our website, oxnard.org/code. You can email us at code.compliance@oxnard.org or code.complaints@oxnard.org, or use the 311 app. If you have a 311 app, I push to everybody. You put your concern in there. When you fill out the information, it routes it to the proper departments. You put a car, if it's an abandoned car, it'll ask you if it's on the street or on private property. If it's on private property, it comes directly to us to handle. But feel free, call us. If you have any questions, please get a hold of us. We're always here for you.
Awesome. Thank you again, Roger, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Roger Brooks, co-compliance manager of the city of Oxnard. Again, he listed a few things that you can do to get in contact with them, either visiting the city's website, oxnard.org/code, or email code.compliance@oxnard.org or code.complaints@oxnard.org.
Yeah.
So multiple forms to be able to get in contact with them, lots of information to digest, but visit the website, learn more about your rights as a tenant, learn more about your rights as a property owner, and just stay in line with the code compliance. Plain and simple, people. Plain and simple. Roger, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to join us tomorrow for a special edition of Oxnard Live as we speak with Dr. Carlene Aguilera Fort, who is the superintendent of the Oxnard Elementary School District, which is the largest school district in Ventura County as far as elementary goes. We'll be talking about COVID-19 procedures as students begin to return back to the classroom. How are students being kept safe? How are staff being kept safe? And what does the next school year look like? That's going to be right here on Oxnard Live with me, Daniel Chavez Jr. All live and 100% real. Have a great night, everyone.